is then perceived by them, owing to their naivety, as their real consciousness. But as for the sacred data for genuine being consciousness put into them by great nature, which consciousness ought to be possessed by them from the very beginning of their preparation for responsible existence, together with the properties inherent in them which engender in them the genuine sacred being impulse of faith, hope, love, and conscience. These data, becoming gradually also isolated and being left to themselves, evolve independently of the intentions of the responsible beings, and of course also independently of the bearers of them themselves, and come to be regarded as what is called the subconsciousness, thanks only to such a, in the objective sense, maleficence, but according to their naive subjective understanding, benevolence toward their offspring. All the sacred data put in by great nature herself for forming in them their real consciousness become isolated and remain during the entire period of their existence in their almost primitive state. And every kind of impression, unavoidably perceived by means of the six being skernalizionics, or in their terminology, sense organs, present in their presences for the specific perception of externals, by the way they count them as 5, come to be localized and, acquiring their isolated functioning, gradually become predominant for the whole of their common presence. Although such a localization of accidentally perceived impressions is found in them, and although they are aware of its action, yet in respect of any functioning inherent in their planetary body, as well as in respect of the acquisition in their common presence of objective reason, it plays no part. All these impressions, intentionally or accidentally perceived, from which the said localizations are formed, ought to be in them only as material for confrontative logic, for that real being consciousness which they should have in themselves, and the accidental results of the perception of which in their naivete they sometimes now confidently regard merely as reflexes of their, in their opinion, insignificant what is called animal instinct. Only thanks to the single fact that your favorites, especially the contemporary ones, do not know at all, and even do not suspect, the necessity of at least adapting their famous education to the said subconsciousness of their offspring, but that they always and in everything intentionally assist everyone of the rising generation to perceive impressions only from the abnormally artificial, then thanks only to this, when every one of them reaches the age of a responsible being, all his being judgments and all his deductions from them are always purely, peculiarly subjective in him, and have no connection not only with the genuine being impulses arising also in him, but also neither with those general cosmic lawful phenomena, to sense which, by reason, is proper to every three-brained being, and by means of which there is established that connection between all the three-brained beings of all of our great universe for the collective fulfillment of the common universal functioning, for which purpose everything existing in the universe just exists. For your wider understanding of this particular psychic state, it is necessary to tell you further that even up to now, they arise with every kind of data for acquiring genuine being reason, and at their arising, there are not yet in their presences any logic Nestorian growths, from which there is later localized and from which there is acquired the isolated functioning in them of the said false consciousness, but only later, during their development and their preparation to become responsible beings, either by themselves or by the intentional directing of their, as they call them, parents or teachers. That is to say, responsible beings who undertake the responsibility of the preparation of the given beings for responsible existence. They begin, as I said, to help intentionally in taking in and fixing only those impressions which later are data for impulses corresponding to surrounding abnormally established conditions. And only then, being gradually formed, there just begins to be predominant in their common presence this said artificially formed consciousness of theirs. And the totality of these localized data existing in their presences and spiritualized in them for the genuine being consciousness, which they call subconsciousness, not having and not acquiring any logic Nestorian growths for confrontation and criticism, but having from the very beginning only possibilities of engendering the sacred being impulses called faith, love, hope, and conscience, always believes, always loves, and always hopes in everything newly perceived. Since for the explanation of the given case, and also perhaps for my following explanations, you must know more in detail concerning being Kanbledzoin, I find it necessary before speaking further to inform you just now about this cosmic substance. Kanbledzoin is nothing else than the blood of the Kesdjan body of the being. Just as the cosmic substances called in totality blood serve for nourishing and renewing the planetary body of the being, so also Kanbledzoin serves in the same way for nourishing and perfecting the body Kesdjan. It is necessary to tell you that, in general, the quality of the composition of the blood in the three-brained beings, and also in the common presences of your favorites, depends on the number of the being bodies already completely formed. Blood, in the presences of the three-brained beings, may be composed of substances arising through the transformation of the three separate independent, what are called general cosmic sources of actualizing. The substances of that part of the being blood, which is designed by nature for serving the planetary body of the being, arise by means of the transformation of substances of that planet on which the given beings are formed and exist. But the substances which are designed for serving the Kesdjan body of the being, and the totality of which is called Kanbledzoin, are obtained from the transformation of elements of other planets and of the sun itself of that system, where the given three-brained being has the place of his arising and existence. Finally, that part of the being blood which almost everywhere is called the sacred being Kanbledzoin, and only on certain planets is called the sacred Aisa Chaldam, and which part serves the highest part of the being called the soul, is formed from the direct emanations of our most holy Son, Absolute. Substances required for the blood of the planetary body of the being enter into them through their first being food, or as your favorites say, through food. But the substances needed both for coating and for perfecting the higher being body Kesdjan enter into their common presences through their, as they say, breathing, and through certain what are called pores of their skin. And the sacred cosmic substance required for the coating of the highest being body, which sacred being part of theirs, as I've already told you, they call soul, can be assimilated and correspondingly transformed and coated in them, just as in us, exclusively only from the process of what is called Aisiriturasnian contemplation, actualized in the common presence by the cognized intention on the part of all their spiritualized independent parts.